Wrapping info. A few things I wanted to go over. I'm going to do a little close-up here about wire wrapping. One of the reasons that I wire wrap small sun catchers is because the wire gives a little foundation for the solder to bead up. It doesn't need a lot of room, okay? And one of the reasons that I use 24 gauge copper wire, because of it's so supple to be able to go into the corners of things and around things easily. Plus I use it for other things in the shop too. But one of the things a lot of folks don't quite seem to understand or be able to take into account is that, you know, the thicker the wire, the more heat it takes to solder to it. The more heat it takes to solder to it, the longer it's going to hold it, and it can conduct it and then burn your little fingers. So in the videos where I'm doing wire wrapping, people see me holding the wire down with my fingers and then getting real close with the soldering iron, and I can do that because it doesn't take a lot of heat to solder to 24 gauge copper wire. Okay, and I do have a little bit of calluses, but people say, oh, he's got Teflon fingers. You know, the other thing that I do also, and when I'm wire wrapping, I'm holding the piece down with my thumb and I'm trying to center the wire using my fingernail. Okay, which works, you know, fairly well for me anyway. But a lot of people, you know, I've seen a lot of guys where they trim their fingernails down to the quick. There's no white. There's, you know, the fingernails are so short that the tips of their fingers almost curve over the top of their fingernails, so they're almost like frog feet, you know. So I had a young man in the shop, oh, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, and he didn't have fingernails, so he couldn't center the wire. All the stuff that he was wire wrapping, the wire wound up being on the back. So what I did was I took this little screwdriver, okay, and you can do this also, and I used a hacksaw. Okay, now not all hacksaws are created equal. This one happens to be the same thickness as 24 gauge copper wire, and I cut a little slot in my screwdriver, okay, and I can hold this and I can hold the wire down. See, get a little demonstration here. I'm going blind. See, I can hold the wire down with the screwdriver and tack it in place at the same time. Okay, now not all hacksaw blades are created equal. This is a different brand and it doesn't fit in the slot. Okay, now if you do get the slot cut, in order to do this you really have to have a little tiny vise. I mean, like a table vise, something that you tighten up. Okay, now this is what's left of a Dremel thin cut blade. Okay, it doesn't quite fit in there. Okay, it doesn't quite fit in there. Okay, so you know, if after you use a hacksaw, if it's a little tight on your wire, you may be able to clean it up with one of these. But again, you need to have a vise to clamp this in so the wheel doesn't get away from you. Slice your finger up. Okay, see, this is a wide cut blade. Doesn't quite fit in there. But that's one of the reasons, and this is one of the things I do to help me center the wire if I'm having a hard time. And, you know, you look at this and you go, well, it's maybe a 32nd or 3/64 of an inch from the tip. And part of that has to do with, and we hear this, not necessarily a complaint, but people ask about, my glass is different thickness. Well, one of the things most people don't understand is that the stained glass industry, the companies that make the glass that we use, are not required by law for the glass to be a specific thickness. It's not required by law to be a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch like the clear float glass industry, which is required by law to be a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch consistently within a sheet. Okay, so the stuff we use, it could be, hell, it could be a 32nd of an inch thick, or it could be an 1/8 of an inch, or it could be almost 3/16 or anywhere in between there. So you're going to wind up with glass that's different thickness. But that's why, you know, I've got this so close to the edge so that I can use this to center the wire against the edge of the piece, okay, and push it into corners, etc., etc., instead of having to use a stand to hold everything in place. And if you watch the videos, you'll see I'm holding it in my hand. I'm holding my hand over here, and I'm applying solder to it. So if the solder does drip off, right, it doesn't land on my hand, you know. I don't have one of those fancy wooden stands for things. If I need something, I can use one of these. See? That's a quick vice for me. Someone else has suggested. You know, you can get these, and they come in plastic too, with a little rubber jaw, so you don't damage your piece when you're working on it. But you know, most of the time, for me, after I get one side soldered, the next step is to put the wire on. Okay, and I think a lot of folks wind up being taught that you solder the front side, you solder the back side, then you put the wire on. Then it's a giant pain in the tail to get the wire centered, and then you have to have a stand to hold the piece so you can get the wire on, you know, and it's not fun to do that, okay, and it's very time consuming to have to do it that way. So that's another reason that I've developed or discovered that it's easier, quicker, faster, easier to solder one side of the project, wrap the wire around the edge, and then turn the piece over and then solder the back. And that's also another reason why I'm usually working on glass, is because the surface of the table is not perfectly smooth, okay? And if you're soldering a lot in one spot, then you could actually, you know, pick up crud from the tabletop onto your iron tip. So, you know, he's doing it on top of glass, it's smooth. I don't knock the foil off the back because of the roughness of the table, and the table doesn't soak up the flux because I'm soldering in one spot, okay, which is a whole other thing. And the glass, I can just wipe, you know, I can just wipe it off. So, I'm not sure if this is going to help or not, but I felt compelled to do this, and my computer is doing a virus check, which is taking a hell of a long time, and I can't use that either. So, thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.